Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of Be the Change Project. If you missed our first episode, I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief description of what this project is about. So, Be the Change Project is a program where Chief Neil Gang has one on one conversations with people from all different backgrounds within our community. Within each episode, we will discuss how we as a community can break barriers of racism, stigmas, and biases through personal experiences and knowledge. We hope by highlighting citizens within our community who are making changes and breaking barriers will encourage you to be the change. So, on today, we have James Willock, correct? Does it
Yeah.
pronounce your last name? Okay. So James Willock is a former lifer who believes in change. He is a part of an organization called CROP, and that is creating restorative opportunities and programs. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
And okay, and then is also part of a podcast called The Prison Post. Through this, he is able to facilitate conversations about transformation and empowerment. Their vision is to restore the lives of currently and formerly incarcerated individuals and equipping them with the necessary resources to thrive upon release. Doing this through personal leadership, soft skills, and employment opportunities. And a brief description about Chief Neil Gang to our community members. He's been here since 2014 in our family, and we are excited to get started here. So I'll let Chief take it away.
Thank you, Natasha. I appreciate that. This project was something that grew organically with just a conversation with Natasha and I, and said, 2020 has really been challenging for law enforcement. It's been challenging for communities. I said, how can we break down barriers, break down stigmas, and really invite people of our community into the law enforcement profession and share their story to change outcomes? So, I'm really excited to have James on the show today. This is really exciting for us, James. And I just want to let the audience know that we do not send James previous outline questions. We believe that being organic and just sharing stories is really where the true value of these type of programs come in. I'll tell you a little bit about why James was a good fit for this. James is doing some tremendous things, and without ruining his story that he's going to share with us, but they're doing things. And what I talked to him a little bit before the show started was, we can let our circumstances surround us and define who we are, or we can change those and become better, learn from them, and help others. And that's why James is so powerful in what he's doing. So without further ado, I'm going to ask James to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and talk a little bit about the programs that you're working with.
All right. Thank you, sir. The first and foremost, I want to say that I don't believe that I'm doing anything, magnificent or out the ordinary. It's what every citizen should be doing, just finding ways to add value to our communities. I believe more so for me and other formerly incarcerated individuals who take a responsible stand for their lives, though, it's super important for us to give back, because we believe, and it's a fact, that we harmed our communities in the past. And so we need to go extra hard to try to bring about change in our communities. So that being said, a little bit about me. My name is James Willock. I'm part of an organization called the CROP Organization, as Natasha said, creative, rehabilitative, and opportunities for formerly incarcerated individuals when they come out. So my story starts, I like to start it when I was around 8 years old. So when I was young, my mother and my father were drug addicts, alcoholics. My father was in prison for most of my life. The first time I remember my father coming to live with us was around 8 years of age. And I was super excited for him to be coming out of prison, to get to see him, to get to be there with him. My mother had been in abusive relationships. So in my mind, as this young 8-year-old child, I believed he was going to be my savior. Everything was going to be great after that. And so when he came home, everything seemed great. However, he got back on drugs. He got my mother, using heroin again. And so everything shifted, everything changed. In fact, he taught me how to steal, went to the store and helped me steal a fake gun that looked real so he could use it for robberies. About a week later, I woke up one night and my mother was crying, yelling. So I ran into her room to see what was going on. He had her pinned down on the bed. I had seen some blood on her face, so I started crying, telling him to get off my mother. He told me it was none of my business to get out the room. He told her to tell her the same thing. So she told me to go call my grandfather, which is his father, to come get him. And I was confused. I was young. So I ran downstairs. Now, I don't know my grandfather's number, but I remember something that I had learned at school. And that was that when firefighters and police officers would come and, do rallies and stuff with us, they told us, if you were in trouble or whatever, you dial 0. They didn't have 911 back then. So I dialed 0 to get the operator to get the help. And so I was crying. I was hysterical and confused. So she asked me what was wrong. I told her that I needed, my grandfather's number, and she asked why. I told her why. I need him to come pick her up. She told me to go ahead and just tell me where you're at, and we're gonna get you help. Don't worry about it. So I gave her the address where we were, and so I'm thinking my grandfather's gonna show up. Well, the police officers showed up, and they went upstairs. They dealt with the situation. They got my father. They handcuffed him and escorted him out. So me seeing this at that young age, him being mad at me because he believed I called the police on him. So he left out mad. To my surprise, my mother was also mad at me because I got the police involved in this. And why I think it's a very important story is to this day, I have no relationship with my father. And I don't know if that was the reason or not, but I have no relationship with my father. My father's side of the family, I have no relationships with them. And remember, I was 8 years old at the time, and now I'm 48, with getting ready to be 48. So, that was 40 years ago. And that's how, this stuff can sit in and really sink in and affect individuals' lives. And so I started developing a belief at that moment. I didn't realize it at that moment, but now I realize it after doing a lot of work on myself, that at that time I started forming a belief that first, you don't get anybody involved in your family business outside of your household. Second of all, you don't call the police. You don't call the police, that the police are not for you. This is a belief that I started to form at that young of age. That led me into viewing criminality and staying away from the police and viewing them in a negative light, all the way up into the fact that at the age of 19, I committed a heinous crime in Sacramento, California, and I murdered a man. And I was sentenced to 34 years to life in prison. Throughout the time, I carried the same type of beliefs, criminal beliefs, that the police, the system is bad. I had went to group homes before this happened because obviously my mother was, dysfunctional. She couldn't really take care of me that way. So she wound up going to prison also for stabbing a lady for attempted murder. And so when that happened, I was shipped around to different houses, eventually being placed into as a ward of the state and being put into group homes. And so all this time, not only do I have a belief now that the police aren't for me or good, but I also have a belief in the whole system is rigged up against me, and everything, anything like that, the system, law enforcement, the courts, the juvenile, anything is bad. And so I continue to have this belief. And once I committed my crime and I went to prison, that belief didn't change overnight. I know a lot of people say once they're arrested, they automatically shift and they say, hey, I see the light. Well, I didn't see the light. I was entrenched in these beliefs, and I didn't believe that I should be in prison. A little, not to go into the great detail about my crime, but I will tell you that I committed murder. I wasn't falsely convicted. I was guilty of this. And so I say that to say, like, look, but I was shot during the commission of my crime. And since I had a belief system that I was the victim of everything, I blame my victim. I blame the court system when I was found guilty of first-degree murder because I didn't believe I was guilty of murder at that time. It took me a long time to get to the point where I realized that not only was I guilty of the murder, that I was guilty of so much more for having chosen to live my life in a certain way, even with the bad circumstances that I grew up in. And so I say that to say that I didn't change overnight. I continue to do wrong in prison. I continue to get 115s. In fact, I got like 16 115s in prison. I went to the whole numerous of times. ad said for the people that don't know about prison. It's administrative segregation, where you're in prison and you're doing wrong and they deem you a threat to the safety and security of the institution or the program or other individuals, and they place you in ad said. So I was placed in there for numerous of times. I went to board like in 2015, and I was given a 5-year denial based on how I was living my life at that time. Now, at that time, I had already started changing, and I started transforming my thoughts and my beliefs, but I had to pay for the things that I was doing in prison. So I was given a 5-year denial at board. After that, I continued on the path. Like you were talking about before the show, adversity can set in, and you'll know your true character when the adversity sets in. So I had told myself I was changing, that I was doing the right things. However, I get this feedback that you're not ready to go back into society. We're going to give you a 5-year sentence, another 5-year to do. And so that was an opportunity for me to really judge and gauge my character where I was at that moment, because many people go and they get those denials and they go back into the negative behavior, just give up or whatever. But I had already made a determination that because when you got 34 years to life in prison, I didn't have life without. I had actual opportunity of the possibility of getting parole. But you can lose hope. But what I did, though, I had made a determination that even though I had a possibility to get out of prison, there was still the possibility that I never get out of prison. That's a fact. That's a possibility. But I had made the determination for myself that if I was to die in prison, who would I die as? And what kind of individual would I die as? So I'd already started shifting in my beliefs and my thinking. And I'd also already started adding value to the community that I was part of, and that was inside of prison, by helping other inmates, being a peer educator, being a tutor in, the educational department and things of that nature. And so I told myself, I'm going to continue on this path. Nothing's changed for me. If I would have got found suitable, that would have been great. However, I didn't change to go get found suitable. I changed because this is who I need to be. And if I die in prison, this is who I'm going to die as. So I continued on that journey. We'll fast forward to 2020. I was released on the 24th. Is that today? Today is the 24th. So
Yeah.
4 months out today. So so my 4-month anniversary today. I got found suitable. In fact, like one of the hardest commissioners that works for CDCR, a lot of people they like to postpone. When they know that they're going in front of this commissioner, they postpone. But I went there. He grilled me for like 2.5, 3 hours. I had already went to the site for another 4 hours, and they looked at everything I had been doing. They talked to me, and they were impressed by what I offered them. And he actually commented that I was the epitome of, not the epitome of rehabilitation, but that I had took everything to heart, and I was, the definition of rehabilitation, and I took full advantage of all the programming that they offered me, and I was adding tremendous value to the prison as well as outside of the prison, and we'll talk about that in a little while as far as the programs that I was involved in while still in prison that was adding value to the community. So here I am today. I'm still in a transitional house in Woodland, California, but I'm out. It's a struggle. But even with that struggle, there's many blessings and many opportunities for me to add value. And so I'm super grateful for that. So that's a little bit about my story.
That's just a little bit of it.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
It's a great story of resilience and change and inter perspective of what you were going through. Let me ask you a question, James. While you were in prison, you were thinking about that. When you were reflecting back on what was occurring or what occurred in your life to get you to where you are now sitting in prison, did you see any opportunity there? Do you think that if law enforcement was maybe spend some time with you on the day that you called to say, hey, what you did was a good thing, you very likely maybe have saved your mom from other injuries or maybe even worse. Do you think that would have maybe changed where you didn't feel like you made a mistake or maybe hold on to the guilt of you calling the police department? Was there any interaction that you think would have at least helped you along that path?
Well, I do believe, especially back then, and now, that we have to have dialogue. We have to have programs in place where police officers and community members are dialoguing, not just when incidents are taking place. And that could have had a help in how I view things as I got older. But at that young of age, being entrenched in a criminal household where I had criminal parents, I don't really know, because you wanna it's the human nature to wanna impress or get validation from your parents. And when your parents are criminals, it's highly likely that you want to do those things so you can get that love and affection that you're craving from them. And that being said, if I would have had somebody talking to me and telling me, yeah, this was the right thing to do, and not just talking to us. This is one of the things I've learned about working with youth while in prison, as well as the 4 months I've been out, that like sound bites aren't going to work. So me showing up, like we did a program while I was in prison called We Care. And We Care is basically, most people think of it as like a Scare Straight program. However, we didn't want it to be Scare Straight, because the facts are Scare Straight doesn't work. And it doesn't work for numerous of reasons. But we believe caring works by showing love and compassion and understanding as well, in a way that's responsible, that can bring about change, and that can bring about the love that children and youth need. And I say that to say, like one officer saying something to me at that time in my life where I still had a negative belief about the police, it probably wouldn't have been enough. It probably wouldn't have been enough. But if it would have been programs where it was a continuous thing, where it was ongoing, then it would have worked. Because this was the thing about We Care and why Scared Straight doesn't work. Partly because they're not scared, but also because if a child, a young adult who's forming these beliefs about gangs and about crime, and he has to go home every day where his mother and his father are committing crimes, where this belief is being displayed to them, and then once a month or every once in a while, someone comes in a positive light and says, hey, do the right thing, don't do this. That's not going to be good enough, because he has to still live his life. He still has to, deal with that day-to-day thing. And so I believe we have to have programs in place and people in place that understand this and are willing to sacrifice their time and be there on a regular basis, with these kids. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for them, and it's not impossible, but it will be hard for them to come up out of those beliefs at an early age.
Yeah, I think you bring up some really good points. A couple of things that we talk about here in Panola is that it can't be a program, right? Community outreach or community policing can't be a program. It's got to be a philosophy. It's got to be the culture of your organization. You want to build real life interactions and relationships with the people that we work in, the community we're working. That doesn't come from programs. It doesn't come from, like what you said, buzzwords. It comes from building real relationships where you care and you love on each other. And that's the way you build real relationships. So the importance of building those relationships at everyday interactions, not just when there's an enforcement action taking place, right? Mm-hmm. Most people interact with the police department when they got a call for service, usually on the worst day of their lives, right? Mm-hmm. But we have to find and proactively find opportunity to engage the community, build relationships so they understand who we are, we can understand who they are, and you build that relationship in a non-enforcement type of role. That's why you have these events, cop on a corner events where you meet with the youth of the community. You have school liaison officers where they go in and they meet the children. They have lunch with them. They do recess with them. Build those relationships when there's not enforcement going on, where you don't have to be there, and to let them know this is a badge that we wear, right? This is just a uniform we put on, but we're still human beings. We're still dads. We're still brothers. We're still sisters. We're still moms. So we're just like you. This is just something we do. This is not who we are. And I think that's why it's so important that you continue on these type of processes to build those relationships. And I always say, like, they say, well, how do we do that? And I say the same way you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time, one interaction at a time, right? You don't need to create an entire change a paradigm switch in one instance, because that's not going to happen. Let's be realistic. It's the constant everyday interactions and relationship building that will cause change in our communities, particularly now, hashtag 2020. We have so much work we need to do on the law enforcement side. So hearing your story just gives me hope that there's opportunities to be able to do that and to have better interactions with our community members.
Oh yes, definitely. It's like you said, it has to be constant and ongoing, and it's exactly what you say. It has to be relationships. It's not a transaction. It's not. I call the police when I need them, or when somebody calls the police on me, and then it's a bad thing. For me to see you is more than a badge, or other individuals to see you as more as a badge, more as a uniform. We have to have that relationship with each other. We have to understand, like you said, that you're a father. If it's a woman, that she's a mother, that she's a sister, whatever it is, that these are human beings, and it comes from both sides. Again, I formed a belief that the police were bad, and so look, let's be real. Our actions come from somewhere. They come from our thinking, right? We think things out, and then we do an action, right? Well, our thinking comes from somewhere also. It comes from our belief system, because that's why we can all look at the same event and view it differently, right? Because our beliefs are different. And so the thing we have to realize is, just like I have a certain belief when I was young that police were bad, it's certain officers that believe like, hey, these people are bad. So now we're looking at each other as not as human beings, but as as objects. And so not until we can break that barrier down and see each other as human beings and as individuals can we deal with each other, and can we build relationships, and then we can understand each other. And I think most of the problem, not just in our communities in the world, as far as with having understanding for each other, but also in your own personal relationships, is the majority of people in the world, not just in our community here in America, but in the world, they want to be understood. And so you see it all the time when you see these protests, and when you see people talking, and you hear them say, hey, they need to understand where I'm coming from. They need to understand my struggle. They need to understand this. Well, guess what? The people on the other side are saying the same thing. They need to understand this. They need to understand that. So if we can decide as individuals that I'm going to say it's more important for me to understand you. And if I can understand you, then maybe I can get you to understand me, and then we can have, a great relationship. But I have to be willing to understand where you're coming from first. As a police officer, I have to understand that you have a job to do. I have to understand that you are a father, that you are a husband, and I have to understand that you want to make it home safe. And I have to understand that your belief is that maybe when you're pulling me over and I'm reaching, that you have a belief that I might be trying to harm you. So if I can understand that, then that can help me not feel bitter that you want me to keep showing you my hands, or you're talking to me, in like a firm manner, but that you're trying to control the situation so we can both make it home, right? So if I can understand that, then that'll help me do the right things in that moment. And if you can understand me as far as, okay, I've seen people get shot, I understand that this does happen. It's like you say, I don't believe every shooting is murder. I don't believe that. And I still seeing these shootings happen. And so therefore, I don't want to die. So therefore, I need to understand, where you're coming from, and you need to understand where I'm coming from. So like, look, he might be scared. He might be this. So let me, maybe not be so firm. Maybe let me smile. Let me give him a little leadway, so we can both make it up out of this safe. Because even though it's not murder, a person is still dead, and he's not coming back. So we have to understand that.
Yeah, I think, again, the concept, and it's an old concept, but it still holds true today. You have to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, yeah. Right? You really have to understand where people are coming from. And you're right. Officers in our profession has not done a great job of doing that in the past. We've been robotic. That's what they've been taught, to be robotic and to be stoic, but that doesn't do us any good. And I've learned in my career, just sometimes just a smile at an interaction lowers the expectation when you're there. It already expects you're meeting them at a different level when you're smiling and you're being friendly and understanding that again, you're just interacting with this person because of maybe a call for service or something happened. But it doesn't mean we have to treat somebody differently or assume that they're bad and we're good. And it doesn't work that way because the lines are so blurred, right, between good and bad. What does that even mean anymore? But I think that you're right. I think we have to understand the people that we're contacting. And I think we can expect people we're contacting to understand us if we're going to continue to do the same things over and over and expect a different result, right? That's the definition of insanity. So we have to do things different. We have to understand that this is relationship building. Whether you're there for, a call for service or you're there just to help somebody, it's still relationship building. And we have to understand that and start foundationally that we are just here to build relationships. And I think that's when we'll see change in outcomes.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we keep going back to the word relationships, and I fully agree. And so we have to find ways to build relationships. It's just like any business that you're running. You don't get close to people if you're only showing up at work, even if you're coming to work with a smile, and you're only interacting with them about work. That's a work relationship. That's not a real relationship. And so outside of work is where you'll build those relationships. And it's the same thing, I believe, with individuals and with the police. If we find ways to engage each other outside of that police citizen conversation and just do more things. Again, I don't know what those programs could look like, but it has to be something outside of just us talking about how we need to build a relationship. We have to find ways to actually start building those relationships.
I agree. There's something that we call, it says human behind the badge, right? Because that's what we are, humans behind the badge. But we don't do a good job in our profession showing that, right? I think that the traditional paramilitary structure is a thing of the past. I think it has not served the profession very well. I think there's a time and place for that. But now I always talk about there's something I coined trailblazer leadership. New leadership, where you're not reading the books of the old past and from military generals about how to run a police department. It's more now like you're a CEO of a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
People of our community, they're customers, right? And we talk about customer service and how do we treat our customers? Because you know what, the job may have gotten done per policy, but how was our customer service during that interaction? Did we treat them like human beings? Did we treat them with the respect that we would want our families treated with? So I think that is where we're at. I think that's where the transition starts. But again, it's this, when you start talking paramilitary structure, it's us versus them. Much different when you're in an occupied country somewhere where everybody on that side is bad and everybody on this side is good, right? That's different. And if we're going to have that philosophy going into our communities, that's nothing but bad could come out of that. I think that's why we have to change, and we have to change the mindset of people coming into this profession, as well as the people that are currently in the profession. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that we have to do that. We have to get out, like you said, the military occupied force type of mentality, and say, hey, these are our communities. These are our communities. And when you talk about leadership, I know it's a big word in leadership right now called proximate leaders. Approximate leaderships, leaders that are actually affected by what's going on in the situations. And what in the past of a lot of the police, a lot of different people, instead of being from these communities, they're coming in to work at these communities. And so you're telling me how to live my life, you're telling me what I should do and what I shouldn't do, and you're not part of this community. That's how it's being, the people of that community are viewing you like an occupational force. You're coming in here to take over and tell us what to do and what not to do. And that builds resistance, right? And so if we can get more engagement and willing to listen to leaders that are actually, being affected and in those communities, and more police living in those communities, I think that can bridge that gap. But I also want to say, we spend some time, a lot of time, especially in the media, and understandably so, because when someone's getting killed in the street and they're unarmed or whatever, it's the police that's having the gun and all that. So we're spending some time talking about changes that need to be done with the police and all that. And I get it, and we should be talking about that. But I think it's irresponsible for us not to also talk about the changes that need to be going on inside the communities, right? And, you know, sometimes people are surprised by a lot of my stance and a lot of most of the members of Props stance on this level of responsibility that I'm talking about. It can't be just the police changing. You know, that's not the only problem, because you have a lot of great police officers. You know, there's a very low number of officers that are actually committing crimes and committing murder behind the badge. And there's some misunderstandings. There's some highly unfortunate incidents that take place with some good police officers, right? And so I don't want to group all them in to say, hey, they're criminals and they should be found guilty of murder or assault or whatever, when it was a misunderstanding, or they were just doing their job and maybe the training wasn't right or whatever, but they had no ill intent towards like racism or anything like that. So I don't want to group everybody together like that. And also, again, the community members, as community members, we need to understand that we have a responsibility also. You know, regardless if you're in the right or the wrong and you pull me over, I still have a responsibility of how I interact and how I conduct myself. You know, so me getting crazy with you that's not a responsible view of it. You know, one of my friends, Jason, always talks about the concept of the window or the mirror. And what we do here in the world, but especially here in America and in our communities, is we look out the window. And we look out the window and we point fault, or we find the blame in everybody else and all the situations that are happening to us. But we rarely look in the mirror and say, what role did I contribute into this? And it could be small. And it doesn't absolve you of the blame for doing whatever you did, right? But I still want to look at it, because responsibility, and this is what we teach, responsibility equals power, right? If I'm only looking out the mirror and everything that happens to me is because of you, because of circumstances, guess what? My life will be whatever it's going to be, but it's not going to be under my control. It's going to be over somebody else's control, right? But if I look at it and say, what way did I contribute to this? That gives me the power to get a different result if I want a different result. And so that's what we teach. We teach personal responsibility, and we need to talk about that more and more, because again, it's not just on the police officer, it's on community members also. And guess what? It's very important for us, because we're saying we're the ones who want the change. So we have to look at how we contribute to that.
Yeah, I think you made several good points there, and I tried to take some notes. But first, Jason Bryant was supposed to join us today. He was unable to make it, but we'll have another episode where we bring Jason back on, and you're more than welcome to join us when we have that conversation. I think he'll add a lot of value to the conversation as well. Yeah. A couple of things you did mention, which I want to touch on, is I think you hit it right on the head, and something that we've tried to do here in Pinole starting in 2014. Hire people from the community, right? You want to engage people in your community, become officers in your community. What a better way to build relationships. So we've done a really, really good job, and a good portion of our officers now either grew up in the community, had family who grew up in the community, went to school in the community, or have some tie to the community. That's a big part of our hiring practice. In fact, Natasha, who's on and being quiet, has grown up in our community. She went to Pinole Valley High School. She was one of our explorers, and now she runs our community outreach unit. Who do you think I want to have, the pulse of the community than someone like Natasha, who's able to do that? I can't do that if I don't live in this area, if I didn't grow up in this area. I can certainly think what the community may need, but that's where we've gone wrong, I think, in police work. We assume what the community needs without sitting down, pulling up a chair now, sitting down with them and finding out what they need. Right? Because police departments exist because of the communities they work in. We don't exist separately in a silo and we decide what the community needs. It's time that we sit down, we pull up a chair, and stop talking all the time, which we're so used to doing, but being an active listener and to think about, what do you need from our police department to help you in the community? And stop dividing lines between police and community. Because when you say community, if you're a real police department of the community, then you're just community, right? You're one. You just do a different job inside your community, but you're one. The minute you start talking about separation and division is where problems start coming in. So I think that you brought up some great points there, and wanted to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, well, I like I said, I definitely agree. And I remember her story from the last one, and I think that's great. But one of the things that also I remember about her story was when she was being an explorer, people in her neighborhood, in her environment, treated her a little different. And, hey, like you're a snitch or whatever, you're working with the police. And so that's why I say we have to have these responsible conversations about, like, look, if you want change, if you really want change in the police or in any system, right? We have to have responsible members from our community stepping up and be willing to do those things. And people shouldn't be talked about or ridiculed in our communities when we want to do positive things, because the positive things are for our community. I just recently had a conversation with one of my friends who was really into the Black Lives Matter, and he's a avid Trump hater, and he's like real, whatever the word is, I'm looking for, but he's for the people in his way, right? And so we were having a conversation because his wife had got a notice for jury duty, right? And so they were like lightheartedly talking about ways that people get out of jury duty. And so I had the conversation like this: why would you do that? Why would you try to get out of jury duty? First of all, it's not just a response. It's not just like something you should do. It's something you should want to do. It's something you should want to do, especially for someone who is so passionate about change in your community. And I said, you are one of the people, and like I was when I was young, who said, look, we're being judged by all white juries, right? And this is not right. It's racism. It's whatever. These are the things that we're making up in our minds based on our beliefs, and these are the things that we're speaking out, right? And so now here you have the opportunity to be on a jury, to give somebody a fair shake, to really listen to the evidence and decide whether this person is guilty or innocent, and give them a fair trial. And you're talking about ways to get out of that. I think that's irresponsible. I think it's hypocritical, and I think it's irresponsible, right? And once we had the conversation, obviously he agreed. I'm grateful for that. That this is something we should be doing. And so again, like when we're having the conversations about how can we get proximate leaders into the police and be leaders in their own communities and all that, we have to have these conversations and let people know that, look, this is a great thing to be a police officer and to live in this community. Why would we want to look at it as a negative thing? But we have to have more people willing to speak that out, and so people can understand. And because you might be on the fence, you have these youngsters, 18, 19 years old, 17 or whatever, and they're still influenceable. They're still influenced by their surroundings, you know what I'm saying, by their peers. And so we need to make sure that the conversations are being had in our communities, that we should have great police officers. I've had conversations again about that, about COs, encouraging people to be COs in the California Department of Corrections, encouraging people to be DAs. One of the youngsters that I was mentoring at Palmer High School, now that I'm out, we're still engaged in that relationship, and he's going to go to law school. And at first he wanted to be a judge, and then he started talking about being a public defender. And so I asked him why, and he said because he believes that most DAs, from what his belief is now, based on having conversations with a lot of people, that they, railroad people, that the people don't get a fair shake. And I said, so instead of going to be a public defender or whatever and having to fight that system, why wouldn't you want to be, with your knowledge, with your input, and with your empathy, be part of the solution and be that DA? That's going to say, hey, I'm going to give this guy the fair shake, right? Because let's just keep it real. I'm not, even though, and most people again are surprised and shocked, I'm not for defunding the police. I'm not for getting rid of all prisons. I'm not for any of that, because I believe they're there for a reason, right? And we need those things, but we need change in those things. I do believe that we need change in those things, but they have to be there. So since we have to have those things, why not have responsible, adequate, qualified people with heart, and who are going to see people as human beings in those positions? So that's my stance, talking to people and encouraging them to be part of, like, the Junior Explorers, part of the police ride along programs, part of being go to law school, be a DA, be a judge, because we need people there that are qualified, but also that have the heart and have the mind to do the right things in the moments when they're called upon.
Yeah, makes sense. And I agree. I think we have to invest in the youth. We have to interact with them, invest with them, lead them in a direction that they're going to make change, because really they're the future of our society. So that's why it's so important, even as a police chief, that we have youth programs. We have programs where our officers are interacting with them, so they see them as human beings, not just police officers. And that's so important, right? Because that could change, right? Your one interaction could change the future of that young individual. And no matter whether it's positive or negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want them to be positive so they can go back and go, okay, that person was a positive influence in my life and not a negative influence. And that's why it's so important for us to engage them at the school level and even further, after school, with after school programs or whatever it may be. So I think that's important. I know we got a few more minutes left. I want to shift gears for a minute and talk a little bit about something that just was really important, probably to you and some of the people that you're in your circle. The new Prop 17 that was up.
Yeah.
And I know we were supposed to have this be the change before the election, but it's coming afterwards. But I'd still like to get your take on the results of that, and tell me how excited you are about that.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. I actually had the opportunity with me and one of my other colleagues, Richard Morales. We did a interview before the vote with KPFA Radio, Hard Knock Radio on that's out of Berkeley. You probably are aware of that radio station. So, anyways, we did an interview on the importance of Prop 17 and our stance on it. And I'm just I can't even explain how excited we are for it. One of the things when you so I didn't get each individual comes out of prison, whether you're a lifer, in a different way, and I don't want to give a lot of Jason's story away, but it's an incredible story. Him and his primey who were best friends, committed a heinous crime. They did tremendous work inside of prison. Jason is one of the guys that actually, before he got to prison, when he was just getting arrested, when he was just getting cuffed up, decided, to change his life and do something different. And he's done tremendous things in prison, 2 master's degree, just a lot of stuff. But I say that to say, he got out. The governor was so impressed with his work that they commuted his sentence, and he got out that way. So I didn't do that based on the way I was living my life. I had to work my way out. I had to program and really do a lot of work to get out. And so coming out, you worked your way out. They're telling you, hey, you're rehabilitated. Go out there and add value to your community. Well, one of the ways you add value to your community, in my belief, is to vote. It's very, very important. I'm telling you, I'm amazed, and I don't understand people that don't vote, especially people that like to complain about, what's going on in their communities and in our country, and then they don't vote. And so we're really on hey, get out there and vote, do the vote. It's not just a response, it's a privilege, but it's your responsibility to vote, right? And have say so in your own life, in your own community. And so when I was getting out, that's one of the things that, I'm never going to be able to vote again. I'm going to be on parole. I'm going to have this felony, so I'll never be able to vote. And so that was I really felt like, even regardless if I'm part of the community, if I'm part of society, I'll never be fully in it because I'll never have any say so. I can talk to people about voting. We can, tell them about, we get clear on what props are, different things like that, and we share it with people. We get behind something, and we want people to go out and vote, but we could never vote. And so now that that's passed, and I'm looking for something to vote on. What's coming up? I don't care if it's a stop sign, a speed bump, or whatever. It affects me, and I have the opportunity to vote. So I'm just super excited about it. And I know most of the guys, especially like you said, in my circle, the guys that you know, that I work with, we're so excited because a lot of us are former incarcerated individuals. And this is just like it's fresh air to us. And again, the circle that I do run with is not, and I don't want, I know people are scared. I know like the normal citizen who doesn't have a lot of interaction with law enforcement, who doesn't have a lot of interaction with CDCR, and they only see the news. And there's a lot of stereotypes. They're like, look, you're a criminal, once a criminal, always a criminal, put them in there, throw away the key. And then when the guys are coming out, like, hey, we still need to treat these guys different. Once a criminal, always a criminal. And so some of the people's belief is that guys will come out, be able to vote now, and be voting for laws or props that are gonna make it, you know, like less law and order. But the circle I run with, as you can tell by some of my conversations, that's not what we're doing. We're looking at this like we're really informed with the things that we vote. Most people just vote. You know, oh yeah, I heard this is good. Okay, they go fill something out, you know, fill in a block. But we are super informed when we make a decision. This is what we're going to get behind. This is what we're going to vote for. And this is the reasons why we're going to vote for this. And we're able to talk about it and discuss it. And so I want people to know that the majority of people coming out of prison, especially after life sentences, 20, 30 years in prison, they've done tremendous work on themselves. They're super informed about the laws and propositions, and they're voting in responsible ways. Listen, my sister, who has been a productive member of society all her life, grew up just like I grew up, but decided and made a choice to do tremendous things with her life, working, owning houses, and all that type of stuff. I want to look at things that are going to benefit her. So if we're talking about taxes or we're talking about whatever, I want her to be safe. I have a niece. I want her to be safe. I want everybody to be safe. I want to be safe, you know. And so when I'm choosing to vote for something, it's going to be a reason I'm voting for it. And it's not going to just be to like lessen the law. So, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think that I could tell you, I'm going to share a story with you, but I voted this year, and I remember reading the prop and making a responsible vote. And I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I was thinking about you when I was making my vote. And then when I saw the result, I was excited and for you and of course some of the people that we've shared our stories with. And I think I even went into Natasha's office that day, or she came into my office, and I said, hey, Prop 17 passed. And I'll lie, I don't know if I knew it was Prop 17. I knew it was a prop, but I knew it was one of those numbers. And I also knew that what it meant to you and to James and to and to, you know, Jason, and also to LeJean and the people that we're interacting with. And I was excited for you. I was really excited for you. I think, honestly, if you sit in a position where you don't think people can change, that just goes against my faith belief. And people can change. And here's a great example of what you three, just the three that I know, that are doing for our society right now. So I'm excited for you. Congratulations for you.
Thank you.
I may just throw something up next week where I'll just have you vote on it, just so you can vote on something, you know. I know you're excited about that, but I wish people had the passion and understood what it actually meant to have that right to vote, because many of us have that right. They don't take the time. The lines are too long, right? There's always an excuse. The lines are too long. My vote doesn't matter. But I think once people's rights are taken away, that's when people really start understanding what they mean and how impactful they are. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for, you know, I'll call it the Be the Change boys that we've been circling with. And I'm excited for
I like that title.
I know that you guys are going to do good with that. I know we're closing. We're getting ready to close out here. And I just want to start with, and I'll let you finish, and then I'll say an ending statement. But I'm excited about what you're doing. I'm excited about what Jason's doing. I'm excited about what LeJean's doing. And I know that this is not just a one-off. Like, I am not bringing you on to a program because I want to feature you in the program. I'm bringing you on because I think you need to have a platform to share your story, because this is not a destination, right? You're just at the beginning. You're just launching all the good things that the three of you are going to be doing. So I'm excited about that. I appreciate you, James, and I appreciate you sharing your story. So I'll let you finish, and then I'll say a few ending words. But again, man, this has been great, and I really look forward to continuing to see what great things you all are going to do for the community.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. I appreciate Natasha. I appreciate Rajan, who introduced me to you through you guys' first episode. Um, yeah, it's just getting started, and so again, just real quick, I just wanted to recap, and the reason why I said at the beginning why it's so important for me to have this conversation with you as being a police chief, is remember I started off with a belief that look, you stay away from the police, and I remember just playing in the parking lot, not doing anything at some apartments we lived in where this incident happened when I was 8 years old, and I remember just seeing the police helicopter, seeing the police, and we would just go hide for no reason, because we really were entrenched in the belief that the police were bad and that you should avoid them at all costs. And again, what the danger of that is, when you need them, you're not going to call them, and so you're going to try to take law into your own hands, and you're going to put yourself in a situation where it can change your life negatively for the rest of your life. And so I just want people to really understand, and just like with any belief, if you think about it, like people like, oh, but that's just the way it is the way it's always going to be, this is just who I am. I'm suggesting no, you don't have to be just how you are. You can change any belief. You can think back in your life, there's something in your life that you believed in, and at that moment, if anybody tried to tell you that's not the truth, you wouldn't have believed it. I don't care if it's the tooth fairy, Santa Claus, and for those who still believe in that, my bad, but they're not real. They don't exist, right? But when I was a kid, you couldn't convince me that it wasn't true. And so
Wait a minute.
just,
I have to cut you off. They don't exist?
No, they don't. Well, they exist in malls and different places, but not really. So, but my point is, like, whatever the belief is, it could be something frivolous like that, or it could be something that's really a strong, detrimental or powerful belief in your life. And however, you've shifted out of some beliefs before in your life. You might have thought you were going to be a football player. She might have thought she was going to be a gymnast, whatever. Guess what? You're not that anymore. You don't believe that anymore, right? And so you can change a belief. You have to challenge it, though. You have to look for the evidence, and you have to challenge it actively. And that's some of the work we do at Crop, talking about our beliefs, how they're formed, and how you can challenge them and get out of it. That's part of the things that we do. And we're going to be going inside a prison as soon as it opens back up. But until then, we'll be doing it remotely. We're going to kick off on one of our first cohort in February of the programs that Natasha was speaking about. I also want to say that, and I want to do a shameless plug. While we were inside a prison, we wrote a book. Ted Gray, Richard Morales, Jason Bryan, and Matthew Braden compiled some stories. It's called "Men Built for Others: Life Lessons from Those Serving Life Sentences," and it's comprised of individuals who were inside a prison, all but one with life sentences, who had transformed their lives in prison and decided to start adding value while in prison. This book, all the money is donated to a scholarship fund to send a young man from Salinas, California, or the surrounding areas that are gang infested and drug infested, to a private high school, who is a college prep high school called Palma High School in Salinas, California. 90, or I don't know the numbers. I like to make numbers up sometimes and say, I'm going to say 95% of all graduates go to whatever college they want to go to. They get to choose what college they want to go to. So all the money goes to that. Now I'm in chapter 4, and every chapter is a different guy's life. They transform his life inside of prison. So definitely look that book up, buy that book. The money, all of it is donated to that cause. And so it'll go for a great cause. And it's a great book about transformation. Again, no matter what you grew up with, what you got going on in your life, you can choose in any moment to transfer your life and do something different. So definitely check that book out. I will also want to just say a little bit about Crop, as far as you can follow Crop in the on crop.org. You can also see the podcast that we do on Facebook and Instagram, and it's called The Prison Post. So definitely check that out. We're talking about restorative work. They're interviewing people. In fact, two of the crop directors just shared the organizational story with California State Controller Betty Yee on her podcast, The California Table, the 3rd episode. So those are some of the things how you can see some of the stuff that Crop's up to, and see what we're doing. As individuals, we're also doing different things. We're finding ways to add value to our youth. We're passing out coats. We're passing out food. These are the type of things that we do in our spare time for fun. We just try to find ways to add value. So please feel free to check that out. And yeah, so I mean that's basically all I have. Again, for now, anything else, just let me know. Any way we can be of assistance, me personally or as Crop as an organization, let us know, and we're there.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. So I took a couple of notes. I can tell you that Natasha and I will put on our social media the link to that book. We'll also put something about Crop and how people can listen to that. So we will put it on our social media platforms to assist in getting your message out to other people. A couple of things, it just comes to mind and talks about leadership, right? For me, I've been in this profession over 32 years. And if I was to write a book about leadership, I could really write it in one word: relationships, right? Yes. Relationships, because that's where everything builds and that's where everything stems. I truly believe I'm a man of faith. You have to love God and love people. And that's what you're doing. And, I'm just blessed by being able to have the opportunity to interact with you, to hear your story, because it enriches my life and it makes me better. And not just that, personally, but it takes this and makes me a lot, gives me an opportunity to use your story and your insight to share with officers. So now when they're going out on the street, they have a better understanding of people that they're interacting with and why it's so important to get to know the people that we're interacting with. Whether it's a good interaction or a negative interaction, they still can find the good in people and understand them and really get to the core of why we're there for that day and what the interaction is all about. So I can tell you that, again, very, very blessed by hearing what you have to do. I would like to, when we get off the call and maybe in a couple of weeks, hopefully when COVID, ends in a couple of months, it would be nice to get all, the behind the change people together and maybe even be permitted to go into a school and share this program in like a panel format where I could be a part of it. And you can bring some of your colleagues with you, and let's talk this into the community, the youth of our community, so they can hear these conversations. Because you know what, James, if you and I could change one person's final outcome, then we've done our job, right?
Yeah.
If we could change the outcome of one person, we could just change that, then all this was worthwhile. So again, thank you so much for everything. I hope you and your family have a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great Christmas, although I don't know without Santa now that you just kind of broke my dreams. So not sure what that's all about. I'm going to turn it over to Natasha again in one, but thank you, James. Thank you so much for all you're doing. I look forward to continuing to partner with you and Crop, and I'll let you know that as a police chief, I'm there for you. Anything I could do to assist in any of the programs, I'm sure we can find ways to collaborate for future programs, and I look forward to doing that.
Oh man, me too, definitely. Thank you. I appreciate you and everything you're doing. Again, I see you as a leader, and when you talk about leadership, a title doesn't make you a leader. A position doesn't make you a leader, and you can lead from any position. However, it gives you an opportunity to display your character, and that's what you're doing with your opportunity. Natasha also, and I appreciate you guys and anything that we can do. And what you were talking about after this COVID getting together, definitely sign me up, sign us up, and we'll be there. And even while it's going on with the Zoom, if you need us to be on something, to have conversations with anything you can set up, just let us know, and we're there.
Awesome, brother. I really appreciate you. God bless you. God bless your story. God bless your future and what you're going to do and the impact you're going to make, James. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Natasha.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, everyone, thank you for tuning in to our second episode of Be the Change Project. I am going to go ahead and leave this posted here on Facebook. I'm also going to post it on our YouTube page, and I will post a link to that shortly. And if you have any questions, go ahead and just post that in the comment box, and we will try to answer them later on, and I'll post the answers to that. So thank you so much, guys.
Thanks again, James.
All right, thank you.